welcome to At Home with Dia. If you're new to my channel, I'm Dia, and in today's video, I will be sharing some tips on interior decorating with plants and how you can use them to solve certain challenges. So if you're interested in learning how to decorate with plants, keep on watching. Over the past 25 years of being involved in interior design and decorating projects, I've learned the power of using plants to bring life and a welcoming sense to any space. When you look at photos of beautifully styled and decorated rooms, whether those be houses, apartments, or even commercial spaces, you will notice that what brings them to life is the use of plants and flowers. Plants can be used in awkward corners, can be used to visually fill a blank wall when you cannot attach anything on the wall, can be used to bring interest and dimension to a styling vignette, and enhance the overall look of your space. I'm no plant expert, and I really don't have much time to be fussing with plant maintenance. So I understand the hesitation to bring live plants into your home. But what I can do is share with you my favorite plants that are easy to take care of, and throughout this video, give you tips on how to use plants to enhance your overall space and bring a sense of life and elegance. Now, don't get me wrong, I do understand that sometimes artificial plants are more convenient and more practical. So some of the tips I will be sharing with you can equally work for artificial plants too. As I go through, I will share the common and the botanical name of each plant in case you want to look it up, and we'll also include links in the notes below. Before we get started, I'd like to point out that it's important to get pots or vessels that are in proportion to the size of your plants, and also that go with your overall decorating style and your color palette. You could pick neutral pots, or you could use colored pots to make a statement and accentuate your color scheme. In other words, you could pick an orange pot that goes with your throw pillows, or you could choose black pots that go with other black elements within your space. So let's get started. And make sure you watch until the end of the video for a bonus tip. Here we have a snake plant, otherwise known as mother-in-law tongue. Who comes up with these names? Anyway, this is one of the easiest plants I've ever had. It has an upright, slim, almost sculptural growth pattern, which makes it a perfect plant for tight spaces. Note the square shape of the pot that is narrower at the bottom and wider on the top. This emphasizes the shape of the plant and complements it perfectly. Here I have a couple of tips for you. I always stick felt pads or sliders under all my large pots. These are the same type that you would use on furniture. By doing so, I can easily slide them aside when I'm cleaning without risk of scratching the floors. For larger plants, I choose taller decorative pots that are actually larger than the nursery pot that the plant comes in. I put an empty paint can or even a smaller pot at the bottom of the decorative pot, followed by an old plate. Here I also included some cardboard for some stability. Then I put the plant saucer to catch water overflow and finally place the plant in the vessel. This makes the plant look taller and more substantial. I also stuff paper or plastic bags to fill the gap before dressing the top of the plant with Spanish moss. This gives it a nicely finished look while still allowing the soil to breathe. Now let me show you how those felt pads on the bottom of this heavy pot makes cleaning so much easier. I simply slide it aside, vacuum, and slide it back into its place. The snake plant is placed against an awkward wall right next to the narrow entrance of the home. I could have chosen to put art or a mirror on this wall, but it is quite narrow, and because there is a console on the opposite side, having two walls across from each other with wall art would be a little bit too much. Instead, the plant fills the area and draws your eye upwards and makes it pause before moving towards the open plan living area. This is a great way to create a sense of entry when the front door opens directly into the main living space. Next, let's look at that console I mentioned that is located in the small entrance area. Space is limited, so I was very strategic to choose a metal console with glass to keep the space open and bright. I kept decor simple and accented with a spider plant. Notice how the decorative pot complements the colors of the other accessories, so everything works in harmony. This is a wispy, airy-looking plant that can be used, as in this example, or in a bookcase. Sometimes you may notice the tips of the leaves go a little bit brown, but I give it a light trim and it looks great. Here we have the goldfish plant, which is a lovely, delicate-looking plant with small, dark green leaves on branches that cascade down. Its blooms are orange and in the shape of a goldfish, hence the name. It is a perfect addition to a shelving arrangement or can be used at the end of a console to bring life and dimension to a styling vignette. Now remember those awkward corners I mentioned earlier? As an example, this corner is against a wall of windows in an open floor plan that is long and narrow. I wanted to provide some visual separation between the living room and the dining space without obstructing the traffic flow. So I needed to be very strategic with the type of plant that I would use. This is where the tall, slim, slow-growing dragon tree was the perfect option. Whether you buy this type of plant from a local garden center or through the below link, this will cost about the same as an artificial equivalent, but the live plant comes with the bonus of being one of the best air purifying plants and is not difficult to care for. It comes in many shapes and sizes, but in this case, I chose a multi-trunk, slim look, and I used the same trick as the snake plant and elevated it in my decorative pot to make it look even taller. Resist the temptation to repot or remove your new plants from their original pot when you bring them home, as this may shock them. Instead, find a decorative pot to elevate them and dress them up, just like I did with the snake plant. This is a budget-friendly way of buying shorter, less costly plants and making them look much taller. When you bring your dragon tree home, it will take a few days to acclimatize and may drop a few leaves. So don't panic, this is normal. Just give it a couple of glasses of water and place it in an area so it gets indirect light. If you notice any yellow leaves, don't be afraid to pull them off and trim the ends of the leaves that look brown. Trying to prevent that bowling alley effect in this long, narrow space, I treated the corner that is directly next to the dragon tree in a similar fashion. This time, I used two plants that visually form a trio with the dragon tree. This gives the eye somewhere to pause before wandering into the rest of the space. The pothos plant is a very versatile plant that does very well both in bright light and in very low light areas. This is actually one of my favorite plants because it is indestructible, and as I like to say, it is the plant that keeps giving. When its branches grow too long, I clip them and put them in water where they spring roots, and I use them as live greenery in vases in other areas of my home. See how these free pothos branches bring life to this countertop? Combined with some other accessories, it makes for a nice little arrangement. Here is another example of how we used the pothos branches to bring life to an arrangement on this tall dresser. The third plant in this trio arrangement is a trachina. It's a variety with variegated leaves. This too is easy to maintain, and since it's a very slow grower, works well in small spaces. The pots and stands were a home goods find that were originally gold and black, but I changed the color to match my overall color aesthetics. When using multiple plants in the same area, it's important to vary the leaf shape, color, and size. Note that the dragon tree has slim, long green leaves. The pothos has roundish, light green leaves, and the dracena has wide, long, variegated leaves. This keeps things interesting and not too matchy-matchy. Here we have the ZZ plant, another very low-maintenance plant that, like the pothos, does very well in low-light areas and is especially effective in improving the air quality of your space. So it is a great option for bedrooms and office spaces. I sometimes keep it on the dining table in a tray so it's easy to just pick up and move out of the way when we're setting the table for dinner. Other times, I have this tray with the ZZ plant in it on my island as a nice decorative accent. I dress the top part of my smaller pots with pebbles so you don't see the ugly brown soil. And I keep my decorative pots in the same neutral color family so I can easily move my smaller plants from room to room when I want to change things up. Moving right along to this little beauty, the Hoya, otherwise known as the wax plant because of its fleshy, waxy leaves that trail down. This is a perfect plant for shelf arrangements, but also looks great on a lower surface provided you plant it in a slightly taller decorative pot. I use this interesting ribbed vessel as a decorative element to the arrangement on the kitchen counter. It complements the more utilitarian items in this arrangement by adding dimension to the styling moment. It is a very slow grower and likes to be root bound. In other words, likes its roots to be crowded in its original pot. So if you use a taller pot, remember to use the same trick as I did with the snake plant, but of course in a much smaller scale. Lastly, let's address those walls on which you may not be able to hang art. Here we have a blank wall begging to be filled with something, but attaching anything on the wall would prevent the sliding door from fully opening. So instead of hanging art or a mirror, I brought in a tall leafy plant to visually fill the blank space. The fiddle leaf fig tree was the perfect candidate for this space. This extra large leaf plant has gotten a bad reputation as being finicky, but I find it very easy to maintain. It enjoys moist but not soaking soil, so I can go for weeks without watering it. When I do give it water, I give it 3 to 4 glasses of water. It loves bright light, but avoid direct sun because this may sunburn the leaves. See how this blank wall looks nicely put together without having to hang anything on the wall. Plants, like humans, need to breathe, and just like us, they look better with an occasional shower and a hair trim. To help my plants look their best, I will make sure that their leaves are free of dust. So once every few months, I will put the smaller ones in the shower and give them a nice rinse. For the larger ones, I use a damp cloth and carefully wipe the top and the bottom side of the leaves. This is especially good practice even for artificial plants because dusty leaves can bring the overall look of your home down. Also, as you saw previously, once every 3 months, I will look at the leaves to see if the edges have any brown spots. I then take clean, sharp scissors and trim the edges in the same shape as the leaf. This gives them a nice, tidy look and also encourages them to grow better. Most of the plants I shared with you prefer bright, indirect light. So even in my north-facing home, they do very well, provided I have them near a window or across from a window. And now to our bonus tip. Since plants in their natural habitat rely on rainwater, it is best to avoid watering your plants with chlorinated water that comes from your tap. I water my plants with purified or distilled water at room temperature. And since plants prefer to be underwatered than overwatered, don't water your plants too frequently. This is where most people get it wrong. They overwater their plants and cause root rot. So depending on the size of the pot, I can go 3 or more weeks between watering my smaller plants and even 4 for my larger plants. In winter, I'll probably water them less frequently. I hope I've inspired you to look at different ways that you can use plants to decorate your space. And please comment below and let me know which tips were your favorite and if there are any that you're already using in your space. Also, don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and to stay updated with new tips and ideas for your home, remember to subscribe to my channel. I'll be sharing more ideas and practical decorating tips to help you elevate your home styling. Thank you for watching. See you next time.